We're celebrating 50 years of the world's greatest collector car auction with some of our defining moments, and one of those was the F88. Selling at no reserve, Steve will tell you what that was like, but what was unbelievable on the auction block was having a bidder sit in the car and on live TV tell everybody he's buying the car. That's never happened, but the consignor was really nervous going into that, wasn't he, Steve?
Absolutely, Craig. And again, we talk about the Barrett-Jackson experience all the time. Let me tell you, that was a Barrett-Jackson experience. I remember Gordon Apker, a good friend of Barrett-Jackson. We had many, many discussions leading up to the consignment of that car. And you talk about a guy that was nervous about going no reserve, Craig. Yeah. He was so anxious on so many levels. The dream number was nowhere near anyone's idea at the time.
It was sub $1 million
Yes.
was his dream number. And I remember being up there with Gordon when he was selling, and once we went over $1 million, I'd go, "You happy? I'd really like 2." Then we hit 2 million. I'd really like 3. It was one of those moments where all of us together and everybody outside, what people told me was outside got dead quiet. Everybody was watching the Jumbotron, and the entire property erupted when we dropped the hammer.
Absolutely. It was almost like the entire universe exhaled at the same time. They were holding their breath for so long, and when the hammer dropped, to your point, Craig, it literally blew the lid off of that place. And I really, in many ways, think that that was one of those defining moments, to your point, that set the stage for so many more in the future, because that took the collector car world by surprise. The energy in the room, the excitement of Barrett-Jackson, the fact that we're on live television, all of those forces collided and created what I would argue is one of the most spectacular events of its kind in history.
It was such a great moment. Check it out.
On the stage is an interesting video clip of our next lot number, 1954 Oldsmobile F88 General Motors concept car.
Now, this may be the most historically significant car at the auction. I mean, it's the only one left. It was the project of the stylist Harley Earl with Bill Mitchell there. I mean, this is a piece of history. GM was not good about hanging on to his concept car.
There it is at a Shriners Parade in 1954.
It's extremely rare because in the early 50s, Harley Earl produced a whole bunch of these for all the Buick Wildcats and the Cadillac LeSabre. All this stuff came out of the styling studios at General Motors. Most of them remained in the collection. This is an awfully rare example of one of these things. It was given or sold, as we understand, to Mr. E.L. Cord, which makes it a really bizarre kind of handoff, and it came into the public realm. But most of these cars are not available for sale and probably never will be.
Brock, think of this car as the cousin to the Corvette. Oldsmobile, jealous of the Corvette, wanting a two-seater of their own, commissioning prototypes like this. They had an overhead valve V8 engine at the time. Chevrolet did not. And Oldsmobile campaigned hard to get a car like this into production, unsuccessfully, because the Corvette wasn't selling very well at all. They didn't have any luck in putting something like this on the road.
That's absolutely right.
Now,
I was talking to a gentleman who's just up there with Craig. He's Harley Earl's grandson, and he came along here because he's involved with this car. And of course, there's a whole family connection still attached to this vehicle. And it's going to be really, really interesting to see what kind of money it fetches. I've asked them to open up the hood so we can have a look underneath, but that seems to be a bit tricky, but I will get there.
Now think about this. If they had approved an Oldsmobile two-seater, the Oldsmobile Corvette as it were, do you wonder if Oldsmobile could have survived if they had had an image high-performance car to sustain them all this time?
The all-time highest bid at Barrett-Jackson is $2 million.
You know, he walked over, Mr. Ferrari hat walked over to the other guy and got in his face.
Yeah.
And that guy just turned around and raised his bid.
I put my microphone in there.
There is the current record for a 1932 Hispano Suiza J12 binder in 1989. We are at $2 million.
He bids 2 and then sits in the car.
I don't know nobody's scratching that beauty.
Jump in there, Alan.
To get in there, so I'm getting in the car with him. Here we go.
You know, he looks determined to own this car, doesn't he?
Let's get his name.
We have a new record.
Give me your name here. What's your name?
My name is Alan from the Gateway, Colorado Auto Museum.
How high are you going to go then?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It's a priceless car. It's one of one ever made.
I agree entirely.
We have 2.7.
Looking for $3 million.
This will make the highlights on Speed News Sunday night.
Harley Earl smiling somewhere.
Let's go. 750 to the $3 million, sir. $3 million, sir. $3 million. Yes, $3 million.
I'd do the same thing.